So, Kurt, there's always this kind of discussion and argument between some of my friends out there. Is there such thing as globalist?
Wait,
globalism. What? Globalist or globalism?
Okay.
Right.
People are saying that there's no such thing as that.
What they're saying is that they're just capitalist, and this is just their global agenda, but they are strictly capitalist, is what they're trying to say.
What do they mean? Like, what do you mean just? Like,
well, they're saying
yes, they are capitalists,
yeah.
but I mean, it's beyond anything about markets, because if you notice, what we have now is not even consumerism.
Yeah.
We're full-blown feudalism.
Yeah.
You want to suck up to the minor lord and lady to get to the top of that, and what the consumer want means nothing.
Yeah.
That's a little different. You know, like, it used to be that, like, whoa, what do the people want? Whatever crap, and you just give it to them.
Not anymore.
No, now it's like, we know what's good for you.
What's best for you.
And it's worse than the crap that you were choosing.
But they know better. Well, the reason why I bring this up is because some of the people on the populist right or the conservative side say, no, those are communists. They just want authoritarian control.
It's so
right?
Yeah, it's just everybody needs to drop their dumb labels because they mean nothing.
Exactly.
The right and left and all that, it's as meaningless as the word woman.
Thank you
so much. It can literally be anything.
Thank you. Because the bottom line is that I don't care if what you want to call them, but there is a global agenda. And there's a ruling class where these elites, or we call them the predator class, make decisions what's best for you. And like Kurt said, it's worse than it was before, including this guy over here. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people are always like, oh, you know, you like to just throw out, you know, Soros as a buzzword.
Well, you know that guy. Okay, so yeah. Soros.
Yes.
And I believe this too. I was watching, I can't remember the guy's name. He just wrote a book about this. And he says, according to him, he says Soros is a British asset, intelligence asset. He went to that school that they have foreign leaders go to. They call it their soft power. Mm-hmm. So he didn't break the Bank of England. They were about to be, the pound was going to get absorbed into the euro, but then it, you know, he bet against it and it crashed. And we're going to have to keep the pound. It doesn't qualify to be part of the euro. Oh, darn you, George Soros breaking the bank. Yeah. He didn't do that by himself. So he's just the front for people to be mad at. And so it's like a brand, like Paul Newman salad dressing. He's like the gross face on it. And
you're right. And once again, because there is a global agenda and people
you don't know the name of the people who would really, you know, it's only a few people. You don't get to find. Elon Musk is not the richest man in the world. No. He's the richest. No. You think that? You think he really is? And you would know who that is?
Yeah. Soros, his grandfather, I believe, was the first director of DARPA. These people, though, it doesn't happen by chance.
Wait.
Yeah.
His not the one that worked on heavy
not
water.
Soros. Excuse me, Bezos. I got the wrong oligarch mixed up. Bezos. His grandfather was one of the first directors of DARPA. That was almost
malinformation, what you just said.
So listen, this article came out. I didn't subscribe to the channel, so I couldn't get the article, but we got it right here. It says, Soros-funded NGOs demand crackdown on free speech as politicians spread hate misinformation. So this whole hate speech, once again, is not really about protecting society and not getting rid of hate speech. It's about a vessel they use to go and take more of your civil liberties away.
Soros-funded means intelligence agencies funded. Just think of it like that. It's like gain of function. Like, oh, okay, you hire a guy to hire a guy. This guy,
Kurt, is a nation friggin' builder. And it's kind of great that we got this article because I'm going to show you, because people, once again, they say, oh, you just throw Soros out there, like Fox News and stuff. Like, oh, you blame everything on Soros. No, Soros is a nation builder. He had his fingers and his dirty footprints all in Ukraine. I'm going to show you. And it's still going on today. So this is from Michael Schellenberger.
He looks great, though. Can we at least say that? Oh, my God.
He does look great for 132. Politicians and George Soros' funded NGOs say hate incidents are rising, but they're not. The data show the opposite, higher than ever, and rising levels of tolerance of minorities is what's really taking place. The reason they're spreading hate misinformation is to justify draconian crackdowns on free speech. Kurt, they can't let the plebs out there saying what they want to say.
I don't understand why this is news.
This is news
for like the last, how long?
Well, because it's once again, it's just connected. Soros-funded NGOs demand crackdown on free speech as politicians spread hate information. Open Society Foundation back NGOs pushing censorship agenda in Ireland and Scotland that includes police searches of homes and personal phones and computers. Sounds kind of consistent with what we just witnessed here in Kansas, huh?
I would take out, but I would be like, when they say Soros funded, they should actually take that out, because there's no way Soros could do that unless that was your own government trying to do that. And so that's you could see it diverted onto this one guy as if he's the one behind it. The governments are doing this. These are all fronts, these people.
Yes.
Well, look at the crap that Elon got for the minor, and I don't even want to call it reform, the minor things he did at Twitter, the amount of crap nonstop thrown at him. There's no way the open society could do that unless it was MI6 and seeing all that.
Unless they're acting on behalf of a global agenda of a bunch of elites and freaking military assets and security state assets. The
Build-A-Bear group.
The Build-A-Bear. The Bilderberg. All right, let's take a look, because this is happening today, and I'm going to show you how it's tied into what happened in Ukraine. The direct actual line of how Soros was part of the whole regime change operation, because he's a nation builder, in Ukraine. However, an increase in the reporting of hate offenses is different from an actual increase. For police to classify something as hate offense, which is either a crime or an incident, which is a hate act that is not criminalized, no actual proof or evidence is required beyond somebody simply calling it that. So it's not that it's not that the hate crimes have increased. It's the way they classify it now.
So wait, are you telling me that a hate crime and a woman are the same thing?
The police themselves admit that the threshold for perception required for this is very low.
If it identifies as a hate crime.
If somebody off to the crowd over there, in fact, you don't even have to be listen, in fact, you don't even have to be the victim of the alleged crime to report it. A random bystander who's not even involved, who has nothing to do with the event, can say, I think that was based on prejudice. I saw his eyes, Kurt. He was nudging him.
This is in Ireland.
And it will be categorized as such.
Well, have fun, Ireland.
A bystander. So here's the thing. The hate crimes haven't increased. The way they classified them changed it, so they used the vessel to manipulate data to make the public think that hate crimes are going up. The biggest threat to our society, what do they call those people?
What?
Domestic terrorists, right? No. Is that what they call those?
What, stochastic terrorism?
Stochastic.
That's where you said a thing, and that could... Actual murder can be excused, but you saying you don't like someone or something, that's the first step to murder, which I don't even care about. I care you said something.
I had an FBI agent tell me, an old ex-FBI agent try to tell me that white supremacy was one of the biggest growing, situations, problems in America. And I told him straight up, you're full of crap.
Well, maybe he was referring to after Operation Paperclip, where we literally tens of thousands of Nazis.
The Nazi draft.
And then people think the Jews run things, but no, it was Nazis that we saved. And put him in charge of a lot of stuff.
Kurt, they did so much valuable work for us. We had that.
That's how I used to excuse when I first heard of it, because a lot of people know about how we grabbed a bunch of Nazis.
It was the information.
What I always thought was, no, they were getting the rocket scientists, because the communists. I know if you said to somebody, oh, well, the commies, or what about Stalin? Yeah. No. We didn't just take the smart nerds. We took guys with big gashes down the side of their face who were just terrorists, and we put them to work as terrorists and also captains of our industries.
Yeah. Someone could report what was an obvious joke between laughing friends as a hate incident to the police, and then guess what? It's a hate crime. Hate crimes are through the roof. So Soros is all part of that whole mechanism. But I want to show you something right now, how it's leaked, how it's linked completely to what happened in 2014.
Now, you sure this is an anti-Semitic? You know, they say it's anti-Semitic to say Soros did anything.
Yeah, I know they're going to say that. A
guy who, as a kid, went around helping Nazis pick out Jew stuff they were stealing.
Yes.
And the only way they debunk it, if you look up the debunking, I'll sum it up. He did it, but he didn't like it.
He did it against his will. Are you saying that Soros is linked to helping out Nazis and funding Nazis? Well, you're going to love this story. Watch this. Leaked memos show that Soros was the secret ruler of Ukraine in 2014. In other words, he was behind the scenes. The meeting took place on March 31st, 2014, just a few months after the Maidan coup, and weeks before a full-out civil war erupted after Ukraine forces attacked the Donbass. In this meeting, U.S. Ambassador Pyatt, Jeffrey Pyatt, the one who was out there with Victoria Nuland, handing out cookies on the Maidan to the opposition, outlines the general goal for fighting a PR war against Putin for which George Soros is more than happy to assist. Oh, let me help you with your media war, with your narrative control. You know why? Because he has plenty of history of working the media.
As an asset, yeah.
Totally, Ambassador. The short-term issue that needs to be addressed will be the problem in getting the message out from the government through professional PR tools, especially given Putin's own professional smear campaigns. George Soros says an agreement on the strategic community issue, providing professional PR assistance to the Ukraine government, would be very useful. George Soros also gave an overview of the crisis media center set up by the IRF and the need for Yatsenyuk to do more interviews with them and address directly the journalists and the current criticism of his decision making. Now, this guy Yatsenyuk was the guy that they used to replace Yanukovych when they threw him out there.
Yeah, right.
And this is George Soros saying, "This is how we have to change his image. This is how we have to get the message
the skinny
across."
One with the glasses.
Yes, I think he
Is
was.
he not Azov related? Am I wrong that I think that he is related?
They're all related to the Azov and the Svoboda Party.
Okay.
The Svoboda Party are the other ultra nationalists that the EU and NATO has backed. Pyatt pushes the idea of decentralization of power for the new Ukraine without moving towards Lavrov's recommendation for a federalized Ukraine. George Soros notes that the federalization model would result in Russia gaining influence over eastern regions of Ukraine, something that George Soros strictly opposes. Now, if you want to talk about the whole fall of the Ukraine.
But why? Okay, why would, if you don't want him to have influence over the eastern Ukraine and Donbass, for example, they weren't trying to be with Russia.
Yeah.
They wanted to just be independent because they were sick of getting, blown up.
Yes.
So why would they, I guess they wanted the war is the only explanation, because why would they ban speaking Russian and crack down on them?
Yeah.
Is that going to drive them to Putin? So it seems kind of deliberate.
Absolutely, Kurt. It's like I said before, it was deliberate because the United States doesn't care who wins the war. The United States doesn't care who loses the war. The United States foreign policy apparatus only cares is that we have the war, because then they get their money laundering scheme pulled off.
Why was Soros so
in play?
Why was Soros so against George W. Bush and the Iraq War? I wonder.
I don't
really. Oh yeah, he was all. We have to stop George W. Bush. And so it's like, that's a weird thing to me, like that, because you would think that would be fine. He's like it is like global. It's like neoliberal versus neocon kind of.
Well, listen, we that's something we can explore too as well. But I don't think that he was really against it. He just came out against it after. Look, when Joe Biden was out there, he was bragging that he was against the surge in Afghanistan. Like, he was the vice president trying to tell the president in his ear that he was against it. But we had video leaked when he was on the campaign trail. I was the first person for the surge. Because then they can change positions. Why? Because Americans are not paying attention. We're asleep at the wheel.
It's actually wild-eyed and conspiratorial to even talk about any part of this story, even if it's from mainstream authoritative sources.
So we're going back to 1994 because Radio Free Europe, which is a radio station in Europe, which it's anything but free, which is the opposition to all the communist bloc and whatnot, started years ago. Well, this goes back to 1994. Radio Free Europe seeks to privatize. And guess who they want to privatize to? You'll never guess. Radio Free Europe, the American finance broadcaster to formerly communist countries whose budget has been slashed since the end of the Cold War, says it expects to reach an agreement soon with financier George Soros to privatize its research and archives operations and move them from Munich to Prague. So here comes George Soros, his grubby fingers. He's going to help privatize. He's going to use it because he's never going to take on something that he doesn't need unless he can use it. And the way you pull off these color revolutions is you need media. You need media to take the people and swing them a certain way.
Which ones have worked? I mean, was Ukraine...
In this particular situation, it worked in Ukraine.
Was it called the color revolution?
It was a color revolution. They had the orange revolution years ago. This was another color revolution in which they had to persuade the people in Kiev to go against the government there that they said was Russian friendly, and it wasn't Russian friendly. It was just it was Yanukovych looking at both sides saying, I want the best deal for Ukraine. That's why he didn't take the EU deal. Not because he was loyal to Putin. It's the fact that he didn't get a good deal for his country.
Wasn't Tiananmen Square also an attempted color? Because what I was told is Soros was not welcome back there anymore.
He had his own candidate involved in Chinese politics too as well, and they threw him out. They threw George Soros out too as well. Now, this is a paper from Sage Journal. It says, Unexpected Revolution, the role of social media in Ukraine's Euromaidan uprising. So when you say Euromaidan, you're talking about the Maidan, which is in Kiev, when they started a color revolution. They overthrew the government. The Euromaidan is the European friendly. So as people become increasingly connected online, more and more social and political movements sparked by new information and communication technologies emerge around the world. So now this is this whole time right now where the intranet is coming into play, when Facebook is coming into play, when Twitter, when YouTube is coming into play. And it's bad enough that the United States foreign policy apparatus or the intelligence community controls every single aspect of our mainstream media. The fact they try to cut us down and sniper us and shut us up independent-wise is even just another form of suppression and against our civil liberties, and we need to push back against it. Freedom of a press is a freedom of a press. You don't need a license from any state to say you're a journalist. You can be a citizen journalist. So they actually have a mechanism which they can lift those up that they want to promote, or they can shut those down that they don't like. While these technologies enable quick mobilization of a large number of participants for a particular cause, not all social media empowered initiatives are equally successful in becoming sustainable and achieving their goals. This paper examines the role of social media in Ukraine's recent Euromaidan uprising. In particular, it looks at the strategic ways in which activists have used social media to protest mobilization, internal and external communications, and organizing. In other words, they were able to use social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as a vessel to get people riled up and involved to overturn their government. But you still need money behind it, baby. You can't get this done unless you don't have a few bucks. In the case of the Euromaidan, Twitter was particularly instrumental in both helping protesters identify and connect with one another and keeping wider audiences, including international observers, informed about developments on the ground. So you shut down one side of the paper and you lift up the other. Yet the communication efforts of the Euromaidan activists might not have been so successful if Twitter, YouTube, and other social media channels had not been amplified by traditional media outlets. So they lifted up this information of these small groups. In Ukraine, the key online news site, Ukrainia Pravda, provided updates and analysis on Euromaidan, while Radio Svoboda, it has the name of the channel of the people they're actually representing, the Svoboda Party, and we'll get to that in a second. And it was promoted by who? Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty. And several other outlets offered ongoing live streams of the protest in 2013. So Radio Free Europe promoted this Svoboda channel, this radio channel. George Soros' parent company that he had all his grubby fingers on, invested in, privatized, promoted this other small channel, the Svoboda Parties, Radio Svoboda.
Svoboda is the...
it's this, Kurt.
Okay.
This is the BBC back when it was cool, right? In 2012, when you could talk about Nazis or the ultra nationalists.
Hey, they're not Nazis. They're just ultra nationalists. You know, like in America, if we had people that were called ultra nationalists here, no one would think of them as Nazis.
Well,
they would just go, "Oh, come on, they're just ultra nationalists."
They're just ultra national, and you could see them fighting and pushing. But you know, you got it over here from Insider. I'm sorry, I went too far with that, man. Was that? Let me. John McCain went to Ukraine and stood on stage with a man accused of being an anti-Semitic neo-Nazi. This is of the Svoboda Party, and I can't let him off the hook, but also Lindsey Graham was there, and Senator Murphy was there from Connecticut, and you could see, this is the dude right here. There he is, with the head of Svoboda.
Hey.
And there's your guy right over there.
Wait a minute. Boy, it's really strange how this theme keeps popping up at the top.
What?
The hailing a cab motion. Nobody can find a cab out there.
Belarus labeled Radio Liberty as extremist. Radio Liberty, Radio Free Europe, subsidized, financed, privatized by George Soros, who then went on, right there, Radio Svoboda, and there's Svoboda. You can see videos of them marching in the streets. They're all hailing cabs all over the place.
Can a hero get a cab in Kyiv.
But that's what it is, ladies and gentlemen. George Soros directly tied to the press, the independent media that helped this uprising.
Maybe John McCain is up in the bleachers. I just want, hey, my man McCain over there.
Over there. There he is.
I'm just one point. Yeah, there he is. Move
But
him a
Soros-
little bit to the side.
Soros directly tied to it. He's a nation builder. He's a globalist, capitalist, whatever you want to call
You know
him.
what it almost seems like? It seems like real rich people at the very tippity top really don't care about anybody's stupid little like political parties or their little titles of what they are. They just it's like strange bedfellows, like whoever we need in our bed at the moment to get this thing we want. The end. We don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the history.
At the end of we don't give a shit. To act like we're doing it for truth and justice.
Well, it's awkward because all these reporters, what's that guy's name? David Stern. I'm curious about the reporters because 2018, 2019, I saw a bunch of stuff about Ukraine, the big Nazi problem, and people.
Because at one point, Vice was all doing work on it. It was okay to report about Nazis until, wait a second, these
same reporters, where the hell are they now? All the people that reported on that stuff. And
Kurt, where do they get their checks from?
But like, what are they?
Now they're going to speak?
Well, this is what I'm asking. Are they just mums the word, or are they now saying, it's not that big a deal? Is the same exact guy?
Well,
is that guy David Stern saying... it's not that big. It's complicated.
Well, I don't know. Listen, I'm not inside David Stern's head, but you can convince yourself a lot of things if it's the landline, your direct pipeline to your payment, to your house, to your livelihood, right? You can convince yourself of a lot of bullshit then. But he knows. They know who butters their bread. Well, they understand what they can and cannot do. They've all been told. Ixnay on the Nazi, don't talk about it no more.
I'm not just, I bet you they didn't even have to be told, because the thing I noticed, I'm bringing up with the other segment, is I was talking to some friends about how awful Hawaii response was, because I'm just curious if anybody knows what's going on. I'm at the Comedy Store, and they're like, at least 3 people have said to me, no reason bringing them, like, well, what am I going to vote for Trump? Yeah. I'm like, who was even talking about that?
Yeah.
So that means everybody's attention is focused on one thing, which is Donald Trump. Yeah. Smart. You're the smart people. And then Putin is somehow Trump. Everything is somehow Trump, and all that so once you have this ultimate Thanos Avengers enemy, that like he's going to snap the world out of existence or whatever the hell they think, you could just forget every other thing you've ever learned in your whole life. Yeah. It's amazing.
I made a tweet once before, Kurt. I said his name is Vladimir Putin, not Thanos, right? Like they were able to villainize all these people, our media.
No,
our
Trump
press.
is Thanos. Vladimir Putin's just like a bad guy that helps Trump.
Under
Trump, there's nothing worse. Why I can't think of a single thing worse. That's how bright I am.
Well, when we were getting into the whole Ukraine war, they tried to elevate Putin up to Thanos status, but I get it that Donald Trump is the worst because you do say anything.
No, Americans don't care about a foreign guy unless they think it affects an American thing. So
don't you know their democracy over there affects our freedom, Kurt?
Because Trump.
Because of Trump.
You can't make it work on a mass scale without it being about Trump. Putin was never that good of a villain, unless you're like these queefs that work in D.C.
George Soros, all these other globalists or people following the global agenda, they're all tied into the same mentality that is the United States. Kind of what I was talking to when I disagreed a little bit with Gerald Celente about our foreign policy, our 82 bases. That's the cause of why people are migrating. But we go around doing this all the time. He even said this is nothing new. Here's Jeffrey Sachs talking about the good old American way.
Because MAGA, people that believe MAGA, they're thinking of probably like, I don't know, the 80s or something when Reagan said it. And that's when the fallout from us stealing people's stuff, like Hitler did. Yeah. And the economy's great for a little while because you're stealing, and then they start to get mad and there's problems. Yeah. So they like make it like when we first were invading their countries and taking their stuff, not the later years.
But you got to admit too, as well, Kurt, this is a little bit of empire education. The American exceptionalism, it's programmed. We're taught everything in school that, we're going around fighting for democracy and freedom and human rights. We're Captain America. And when we do these things, we do them because we're justified doing them.
Do they call Chicago Chirac? And they call another, I can't remember what other part, but those places are like worse than Iraq, actually. I don't think people even understand the level. Most people do not understand the level of how crazy it is there. Yeah. And that's how they want it to be. Just how we want to ruin a Middle Eastern country to extract whatever we want to extract out of there. We want everything unstable here because God forbid you figure out that you shouldn't be fighting over the petty stuff you fight over. Yeah.
it's not just too about the resource extraction. It's also about thrusting our monetary system on these countries too as well. So therefore it holds value on our global dollar, but that's starting to fade away. And then you can take your banks with your IMF and your central banks and throw loans and put them on the back of people, keep them enslaved all the time. This is Jeffrey Sachs talking about the good old American way that we just can't shake this behavior, and it drives me crazy. That's why I definitely disagreed with Judge Knapp and Gerald Celente when he said, I don't want them coming here, let them figure it out. It's our country's bases that are over there. We can't say shit until we're not over there as bases. We're occupying. And that's all we do is occupy.
Why do you think the bigwigs are letting them come in? Because they know they're screwing it up there. Like, ooh, cheap labor.
Well, why cheap labor? That's why. Because now they can take advantage of them there.
They're coming here to go pay. You'll pay them $5 an hour to put a toilet wherever you want.
And it's divisive as F with the country and the people. Take a look, Jeffrey Sachs.
We're already in a post-American and post-Western world. We're in a truly multipolar world. We're in a world where the BRICS countries are larger than the G7 countries. We're in
Turkey wants to join. Even Turkey and Greece want to join the BRICS countries.
One of the points of all of this is the United States does not accept that transition. The United States still believes that this is ultimately a U.S.-led world with two recalcitrant actors, Russia and China, and all the rest will come along to understand the realities. And the U.S., in my opinion, is a quarter century out of date. And Europe is a big disappointment in this because there isn't one voice in Europe right now that has a geopolitical outlook that
Not
is
one.
really even intelligible, basically. But what kind of world we're heading towards really is an open question, because we could be heading towards a world of massive conflict and disaster, or we could actually head towards a world where some intelligent, non-octogenarian leader in the United States arises and says, NATO, we don't need it so much anymore. But what we do need is to have normal relations with China, with India, with Russia, with Brazil, with the EU. And then suddenly things would look really quite different.
How would that possibly happen? How would that possibly happen?
Listen, you got to lay out the plan. If you can't vision it, it'll never happen, right? You got to believe it could happen to happen, right?
It could. What I could see is it collapsing like the Bernie Madoff. Our country's a big Bernie Madoff scheme, so I could see it collapsing.
Why would it collapse, though, for real, though? If we really had a situation, which you said, we had a voice that came forward and said, enough of this NATO shit, and let's close these bases. Let's actually bring back a lot of our people. You know what I'm saying? Let's bring back a lot of bases. Let's close it. Let's start worrying about ourselves. Let's ixnay on the whole.
The forces at work that would make sure you couldn't do that are
okay, but it's the forces, right? It's not the people. I think it's important to identify that the people would go with it, Republican and Democrat. If we would stop acting like the police around the world, come home, fix our infrastructure, grow our own food, do our own things, make things, fix things.
Okay,
the people of this country on both sides of the aisle, though, Kurt, they would want it.
They don't want to make their own things and do any of that. My friends, when I go to New York, are like, they're a little bit fat, they take Ozempic. If they're like all aboard.
When I say make our own things, I'm saying instead of worrying about exporting all our labor everywhere, like China, Laos, Cambodia, to make things, that we could have factories here. We could have infrastructure, factories in the United States.
The kids now are trained to make TikToks and not do anything.
But that's just one group of kids. You go out through middle America, there's people starving for jobs, and they will do anything.
And they don't know anything about NATO. If you bring up NATO, they don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm for it. I'm just, if you got this big of the population, one encouraging thing is when I talk to friends, I'm like, they're going to bring back massive mandates. They're like, what? And that's people that were like, hey, don't talk crazy that there's something wrong with this. Just get through the shot. Like people like that. So that was heartening. Yeah. So that'll hit you in the Buffalo Wild Wings brain, something like that. But all this talking NATO, people don't know. That's why Abolish All Police was so stupid. People have no idea about this stuff. They don't have the slightest idea. And you sound crazy for saying things that are easily researched public knowledge. You sound crazy for bringing it up.
I think that a lot of people back in the days, they were asleep at the wheel. They didn't pay attention to what happened in foreign policy. And now we have this kind of mechanism in which we can talk about a lot of, foreign policy things, not from the state media, because we all have sources. Like people say, what made you a success? What do you think made you a successful independent media journalist? And now you're continuing to do this as your lifestyle. I said it's sources. I know this independent reporter over there. I know this independent reporter over there. I have a region. If I want to know what's going on, I have a person to contact to know what's going on. We have that vessel.
And you don't do, people are starting to feel when someone's talking to them, it sounds like paid advertising as opposed to reporting. And almost all the reporting has the sound of paid advertisement without telling.
Raised eyebrows, right? Like, oh my God, these are raising eyebrows.
So,
all right, that's bullshit. But we do have that mechanism nowadays. But, we can get back to a country, I think, when we had, before NAFTA, we would make things here. We would fix things here. We have so much farmland. We can grow things without GMOs, without freaking geoengineering. We could do this. What I'm trying to say, Kurt, more than anything, and I know a lot of people are duped or stupid or programmed and are lost in TikTok, but we have a big group of people, a large enough amount of people in this country that we can really do our own thing and not have to, stand behind being the policeman of the world while our foreign policy has 800 bases everywhere. We could do this. Right. And that's on both sides of the aisle. People are desperate for that.
People have to get affected so much. Like a bunch of people are, like way more, I think, than were before. But the people that are not feeling it still, that don't even know the Hawaii thing, which I would think is like Katrina level news.
Beyond Katrina level news.
I talked to a couple of friends like, and I just brought up Hawaii and bring up, they go, oh, do you think it was a space laser? And not because they heard I think of a space laser, because it's already been put out there, space laser, as a thing of like, oh, Hawaii, yeah, it's fine. If anybody thinks it's not good, they probably believe in space lasers. They're already programmed like that. And these are friends of mine that are doing well in like touring and, like once it hits you, that's the basis of America. You don't got to give a rat's ass till you personally are uncomfortable.
Affected, yeah.
So what's going to have to happen is, I'm not saying cause it, but I'm saying it's going to happen where they're going to start getting uncomfortable too. Because I didn't notice anything until like, I had to notice it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always say that all the time. A lot of people don't pay attention to foreign policy because we don't have to worry about bombs being dropped over our heads.
We don't even think anything's wrong with that either.
Yeah.
It's America. We just go whatever.
Yeah. We're the policemen of the world.
Hey, come see us on Live on Tour. We're doing a show in New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Connecticut, Toledo, Rochester, Michigan. That's just outside of Detroit. St. Louis, Tampa, Florida, Boca Raton, Florida, and Orlando, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.